أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين خاتم النبيين بالقاسم محمد وأهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس طهرهم تطهيرا. أما بعد فقد قال أمير المؤمنين علي بن أبي طالب عليه الصلاة والسلام فما راعني إلا والناس كعرف الضبع إلى ينثالون علي من كل جانب. صلوات على محمد وآل محمد. We're at the conclusion of this third sermon from Nahj al-Balaghah, known as Khutbah Shaqiyya. Initially, in the beginning of this khutbah, if I can just remind you, we had discussed about the matter of Khilafat, where Imam talks about the first three caliphs and how they assumed the responsibilities of Khilafat. It was his right, how they took it away, and how manipulations were done. And Imam very openly speaks about it without any fear or causing any sort of conflict. Imam also mentions how he remained silent. He didn't go out and revolt, and he gave his reasons regarding that as well. And at times, he also proved to them how this was his right that belonged to him, that was taken away, and he was more deserving of this than anyone else. And this became the reason why many of the commentators of Nahj al-Balaghah declared that this cannot be the words of Imam Ali. The matter of conflict, or how Imam criticizes the Khulafa, especially according to them, those who are Khulafa Rashideen, how Imam is openly criticizing them. It cannot be the words of Imam. Why? Because Imam was in good relations with them. And due to that, Imam would never use such harsh words for these individuals. With that past, we are now at the last segment of this khutbah Shaqiyya, and inshallah we intend on finishing it tonight. Towards the end, Imam alayhi salatu, as you can see, the title is Mubayatu-Ali. Mubayatu-Ali means the moment when people came after the first three dawr of Khilafat ended. The fourth dawr of Khilafat is where the allegiance from Imam Ali is taking place. And Imam talks about what evolved and what happened at that exact moment. So some of these words are actually the first-hand eyewitness report of what's happening. Of course, who else seen this than Imam alayhi salam himself? He's the one who's the recipient of it. This is where people are coming, barging down his door. So he's the recipient of it. So he knows firsthand as to what happened. He said, فَمَا رَاعَنِي إِلَّا وَالنَّاسُ كَعُرْفِ الضَّبُعِ إِلَى يَنْثَالُونَ عَلَيَّ مِنْ كُلِّ جَانِبٍ. At that moment, nothing took me by surprise, but the crowd of people rushing to me, it advanced towards me from every side. Now, this is the real picture of it. This is the reality of it. It is not metaphorically that Imam is saying how you read in Surah Nasr, إِذَا جَاءَ نَصْرُ اللَّهِ وَالْفَتْحُ وَرَأَيْتَ النَّاسَ يَدْخُلُونَ فِي الدِّينِ اللَّهِ أَفْوَاجًا, where Allah says that you see that after the Fatih Makkah, what do you see? People are entering the fold of Islam. Afwaja. Afwaj refers to what? Large number of people. Now it is used metaphorically. Maybe hundreds of people were entering, thousands of people were entering, but this word is used metaphorically over here. Imam, when he says that they rush to me, rushing from every side, is not a metaphor. Because Imam is referring to his house, how his house was. It wasn't a humongous house where you could fit hundreds of thousands of people. So even 200 people, 400 people, 1,000 people came in, it would be packed with it. And it would be considered, so relatively speaking, but then Imam says that this is also could be taken metaphorically, where there was so much enthusiasm and so many people that came. There's no resemblance to that ever in Islam. You don't see any of that in the previous khulafa, how people rushed, and there's no nadir, and there's no tashbih, and there's no resemblance of that ever happening. But of course, after this happened, they were not able to, bear with my policies, and they went against me. There was a lot of confrontations that took place that resulted in mainly 3 wars: Jamal, Siffin, and Nahrawan. So he said that is the biggest proof of what these people came looking for and what they got from me. And then Imam talks about Hatta laqad wutiya al-hasanani wa shuqqa itfaya. Like the meme of the hyena, so much so that Hassan and Hussein. So meme of the hyena is when the flock of sheep, are attacked by hyena. What happens? They scatter. They run in all directions, or they try to go to their owner, right? They try to find pana and refuge in their owner. This is like the meme of the hyena, so much so that Hassan and Hussein were getting crushed, and both ends of my shoulder garment were torn. Jo Aba Imam ne odi hui thi. Here, when Imam uses the word araf al-dabo, of course, it speaks about a large number of people. And it could be that Imam is speaking in this way because this bay'at is going to bring a very strong and important responsibility on the shoulder of Imam. That is to lead this ummah. But at the same time, Imam is aware of what is going to happen in future, because Rasulullah has already informed him. And he's afraid of this breaking of allegiance by the people. So that is something which is a matter of worry to Imam. Fear of Imam Hassan and Imam Hussein getting crushed in a stampede like a situation. Although we understand that Imam Hassan and Imam Hussein were not young kids at that time. This is happening when? This is happening in the 35th year after Hijrah. Imam Hassan and Imam Hussein are at least 33 and 32 years old. So 33 and 32 are not young kids. They're strong men at that time. And for them to be crushed is something which is unthinkable. Yeah, you say, 5-year-old, 6-year-old were getting crushed. In a large number of people, 32, 33-year-old will not be getting crushed. But the fact is that Imam uses this, could be in a metaphor, where Imam ﷺ is speaking that, no, they weren't getting crushed literally, because they're too old to be getting crushed. But hujum was so big that anyone could have been part of the stampede. Because when stampede happens, what happens? Even the older ones get crushed under this. That's how large of a number of people that came rushing to my house. And then, of course, the 2 sides of my abba were also getting torn because of that. Some mentioned the word Hasanan is not referring to Imam Hassan and Imam Hussein, because that is unthinkable. How can 2 grown men be crushed? He said, Syed Murtada mentions that the 2 toes of your feet are also referred to as Hasanan. So it could be that Imam is referring to not his children, Imam Hassan and Imam Hussein, rather the 2 toes of his feet, they were getting crushed because of the large number of people. And there's another third, tafsir of this as well, which might be very far-fetched. that speaks about the two bones of my hands. So the bones in the hands are also referred to as hasanan. In some ash'ar it has been used. Imam may be referring to the two bones in his hands. But of course, how can your hands be crushed when a large number of people come, unless you're on the ground? So this is also a far-fetched tafsir. Just a quick mention on this. مُجْتَمِعِينَ حَوْلِي كَرَبِيضَةِ الْغَنَمِ. They collected around me like the herd of sheep and goats. The Imam refers to these people as what? Sheep and goats. Now, you can look at it in a literal sense. As he said, when hyenas attack, what happened to the sheep and the goats? They're scattered and then they're running for refuge to their owner and their master. But at the same time, some mufassirin, some shurra, have referred to goats and goats and the sheep. They refer to them as people who were nadan, meaning these people were naive. That people were naive, they did not know what to do. So they found nothing, they said, let's just go to the house of Ali. So it reflects on them being naive. Anything else that Imam is referring to them as actual goats or sheep. Then Imam says, فَلَمَّا نَزَعَ. It's not that long. This khutbah is towards the end. It's very short. فَلَمَّا نَحَثْتُ بِالْأَمْرِ نَكَثَتْ طَائِفَةٌ وَمَرَقَتْ أُخْرَى وَقَصَتَ آخَرُونَ. When I took up the reins of government, so Imam moves quickly. All that happened. Now I took up the reins of the government. One party broke away. Another turned disobedient, while the rest began acting wrongfully. So this enthusiasm did not last too long. This hujum did not last too long. They came with all their enthusiasm knocking on my door. It wasn't for that long. I knew, because the moment I will take up the reins of the government, this uhda, they will not be able to come along with me in the same way that they have come to my door with all the enthusiasm. What happened? There was three types of payman shikani, breaking of allegiance. First, those groups, that group of people that broke away, they broke the amr. They are referred to as nakithin. Nakatha, Imam used the word. Second is the one that turned disobedient. They did tughyan, and Imam refers to them as maraqat, mariqeen, as the history remembers them. And the third one are those who brought about fire onto me, and those who basically brought about war against me. They are as qasitin. So the three groups that are mentioned in the time of Imam, nakithin, mariqeen, and qasitin, Imam uses them in the verb. Look at the eloquence of Imam here, that he uses the verb form of the three types of people that existed in his time as nakasat, maraqat, wa qasata. كأنهم لم يسمعوا الله سبحانه يقول تلك الدار الآخرة نجعلها للذين لا يريدون علوا في الأرض ولا فسادا والعاقبة للمتقين. As if they had not heard the word of Allah saying that the abode in the hereafter, we assign it for those who intend not to exalt themselves in the earth, nor to make mischief therein, and the end is the best for the pious ones. They thought that they'll join me and I will go ahead and provide them with the posts and high ranks in my government, and I will give subsidies and I'll make things, no, none of those things. I was going to go ahead and lead with adalat-e-ilahi, and I wasn't going to go ahead and do nepotism, favoritism. I'm not going to go ahead and install my own children and my family members in the various posts that are now under my command. So again, nakithin refers to those who broke the payman and the allegiance from Imam. This is the ishara toward some of those people who were with the Ummul Mu'mineen, such as Talha and Zubair. So Imam says, Nakatha, it refers to Talha and Zubair. Why? Because they were the ones who went to Mu'mineen and said, oh, you need to stand up and take the revenge of the death of Uthman. They made it into like a political scene. And then, of course, when Mu'mineen calls for war, people came running after her. So Imam refers to as Nakithin, who? Talha and Zubair. Mariqeen is the, ishara toward those who lit the fire of war, those who instigated the fire of Nahrawan, the same way the Khawarij did after the whole incident of Hakamain, after the Battle of Siffin. There was a group that broke away from Battle of Siffin. They said, we're neither with Ali nor with Muawiyah. We're third party. And we want both of them to be held accountable and put them into the court. So one person comes from, as a representative of Muawiyah, who was that? Amr As. The other comes representing Imam Ali, although Imam didn't appoint him, Abul Hasan al-Ash'ari. And then they start having this muhakama. And of course, Amr As was shatir. He was cunning. He was able to beat Abul Hasan al-Ash'ari and make fun of him. And of course, giving Muawiyah an upper hand and disqualifying Imam Ali. Mariqi in these Khawarij said both are disqualified until this muhakama takes place, this qazawat takes place. Both representatives come, they present their arguments. Who wins? Amr As wins. He said, well, Ali is disqualified because his representative, Abul Hasan al-Ash'ari, is disqualified. Well, Imam said, I did not appoint him. This is something that they did between themselves. So these were the people referred to as Mariqeen or the Khawarij. They were, of course, coming from the Battle of Nahrawan. Qasitin, that Imam refers to over here, is the Lashkar of Sham and the Lashkar of Muawiyah. Qasata comes from the word adalat, or also in the meaning of zulm. And so this was something which we saw from this group of people. And then Imam continues by reciting this ayat in this, mentioning to them that what they thought and what they got in return. Then he says, Bala, Wallahi, laqad sami'uha wa wa'auha, walakinnahum haliyat ad-dunya wa a'yunihim raqahum zibrijuha. Yes, by Allah, they had heard it and understood it, but the world appeared glittering in their eyes, and its embellishment seduced them. So, of course, here, Imam, there's ishara towards how they were so much controlled by their hawa and hawas. They were so much into this world talabi, asking for this world and going after this world, that, just the same way in the times of Rasulullah, how they would run after the ghanaim jangi, and they would not spare any of these spoils of war. They thought this is also an opportunity to make some money, to make some score some points, and that was not the case. They found out very soon about it. And then amma walladhi falaqal jannah wa baran nasama lawla hudurul hadir wa qiyamul hujjati bi wujudin nasir wa ma akhadallah. So here Imam is giving what? Imam gives that I would have never taken up this khilafat. I would have never taken up this. I'll quickly finish because otherwise people will start falling. More and more people start falling asleep. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. He said, I would not have taken up on this if it wasn't for, people doing this. And then Imam mentions what is the worth of this khilafat in his eyes. This is where you hear this sentence a lot in the speeches of ulama when they quote the word of Imam. Read what it says. It says, behold, by him who split the grain to grow and created living beings, if people had not come to me and supporters had not exhausted the argument, and if there had not been no pledge of Allah with the learned to the effect that they should not acquiesce in the gluttony of oppressor and the hunger of the oppressed, what would have happened? I would have cast the rope of caliphate on his own shoulders. Yani kya? I would not have taken this cloak of caliphate on my shoulder. I would have casted it where it belonged, on his own shoulders, and would have given the last one the same treatment as to the first one. Then you would have seen that, in my view, this is the famous word of Imam. He says, "Dunyakum hadihi azhada indi min atfatil anzin." He said, then you would have seen that, in my view, this world of yours is no better than the sneezing of a goat. What is the sneezing of a goat? It's worthless. Something which you don't pay attention to. If a goat is sneezing, like, who cares? Imam said, that is the value of what you are offering to me. This dunya, the one that I have given 3 divorces, la raja'ata ba'da, there is no ruju after that. This is the value of this world in my eyes. قالوا وقام إليه رجل من أهل السواد عند بلوغه إلى هذا الموضع من خطبته, that it is said in Amir al-Mu'minin, so this is now, Syed Rizvi is narrating, this is not part of the khutbah, that it is said that when Imam Ali reached here in his sermon, a man of Iraq stood up and handed him over a writing. Amir al-Mu'minin began looking at it. Ibn Abbas said, "Oh Amir al-Mu'minin, I wish you resumed your sermon from where you broke off." Thereupon he replied, "Oh Ibn Abbas, it is like the foam of a camel when gushed out but subsided." Imam did not finish his kalam. He stopped over here. Ibn Abbas says that he never grieved over any utterance as he did over this one, because Imam Ali could not finish what as he had wished to do so. Now, Syed Razi then gives more explanation about some of the words that Imam uses in the end of this khutbah. I will refrain from explaining that. But alhamdulillah, we completed this khutbah shaqiyah. And the summary of basically this khutbah is that how Imam speaks about the first 3 caliphs, their khilafat, and what they did, and how the 4th khilafat came to me. And historians, Imam feared that too. Historians will give it a twist that Ali's khilafat is marred by the killing of Uthman. Uthman was killed, and then Ali becomes the Khalifa. They will give a relationship between the two, that as if I am responsible for that, and people did so afterwards, and they waged war against him, or taking the the libas of Uthman, calling in the slogans Ya li tharat Uthman, that we're going to take the revenge of the death of Uthman under the command of Ummul Mu'mineen, and under the command of these great companions of Rasulullah. Wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Allah. Ali, turn off the live stream.